Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Effortless Chess, where I try to make chess an easy game, effortless game, and fun game. Today we are going to talk about tactics in the middle game, and the most famous tactic, and we almost face it in every game, is the pin. What is the pin? Simply, when the piece cannot move, we call it pinned piece. What makes the piece cannot move? That's what we are going to talk about it. How we can use this weapon, it's very dangerous weapon. And how we can avoid it when we are defending. So what is the pin? As you can see in this position, we can see there is a bishop and a king, and they are on the same file. So if I have a rook and I can move this rook to the same file, in this case this rook will pin this bishop against this king. So now black cannot move the bishop at all, because if he moves the bishop, then he will put his king in danger, which is not allowed in chess. You are not allowed to expose your own king to a check. So in this case, this bishop is pinned. It cannot move. And by the way, if the king was the piece which is behind the pinned piece, we call this pin as an absolute pin. There is no chance for the bishop to move. And this is the most important pin, the absolute pin. Now let's say the king was not the piece behind. Let's put the queen. In this case, if white wants to pin this bishop, we call this pin as relative pin, because relatively the queen is more important than the bishop. So if you move the bishop, let's say I want to move the bishop here, then white will take my queen. So that's why it's pinned. You cannot move the bishop unless there is something relatively more important than the queen, or the piece behind the bishop was not the queen. Let's put a knight behind the bishop. Is this bishop pinned? Relatively yes, because there is a knight behind the bishop and the knight is not protected. So if I move my bishop, I will lose my knight. But because the bishop and the knight are on the same value, I have a chance to move the bishop here and protect my knight. In this case, the rook cannot take the knight because it's already protected. So relatively it's pinned, but in some or under some conditions I can move this pinned piece if I have something more important than the knight. For instance, let's say white's king was let's say it was here or even here. So if the white king was here, now my bishop is pinned. It's a relative pin. So if I find something more important relatively than this knight, so I can move my bishop, for instance here, I can move it here and attack the white's king. So relatively I found something more important than my knight, and in this case white cannot take my knight because he has first to move his king, and then I can save my knight. So that's the difference between the absolute pin and the relative pin. In the absolute pin, there is no chance and no way to move the piece. It's absolutely pinned. In relative pin, it depends. If the piece behind you more important and more valuable, you cannot move the piece unless you find some threat more important than this piece. So now we have two kinds of pins. As you can see, the absolute pin, when the king is behind the pinned piece, or the relative pin when another piece more important than the pinned piece is behind your piece, so you cannot move your pinned piece. If you move the bishop here anywhere you want, you lose the queen. So that's why we call this bishop as pinned piece. So make sure if you have a pin in your game, try to be the pinning side and keep your pieces always far from being pinned and keep them always active. So now we have two kind of pins, the absolute pin and the relative pin. The absolute pin when the king is behind you. Relative pin, there is a piece which is more important than the pinned piece behind you. If you move your pinned piece, you will lose the other piece. The last, I cannot call it last kind of pin, but it's a strange one, so we need to talk about it separately. When there is an important square behind your piece, in this case, if this rook could go to this square, it will give checkmate to the black king. So can this knight move? If black moves the knight, it's not pinned. You cannot see, there is no king here, there is no queen, there is no rook, there is nothing. It's empty square. That's why it's not easy to recognize such pin. But if black doesn't know about it, he moves the knight by, like, he played too fast, then the rook can go all the way and give this checkmate. So we can say this knight is pinned. We cannot move it because there is checkmate here. So in this case, this knight looks like it's pinned. That's all about the pin. We have two pins. The first one is the absolute pin. You cannot move the piece at all, absolutely. The second one is relative pin, when there is another piece behind you. And the last one, where the square was important. If you move the piece, this square, if your opponent reaches it, it will be a disaster. So make sure all your pieces always, as we talked in the last video, safe and active and connected. So activity is the opposite of pinning. If you want your pieces to be active, you need to avoid pin. Keep your pieces always active. And the opposite also for your opponent. If you want to reduce his activity, try to pin his pieces when you have a chance, so his pieces will not be able to move, and that's how you build your advantage. Now let's play a game and see how we can apply the pin in our games. Let's start a new game and see how we can apply the pin in the middle game. Okay, here we are black. White to move. Pawn in the center, excellent. Let's do the same. Pawn in the center, you know the three golden rules. And then develop your pieces. He was attacking my pawn, so I protected. He developed a bishop from the king side. Now he is ready to castle. I will do the same. Always try to protect or attack the center, or at least we can say control the center. Another piece. Now we both developed two knights and a bishop. Okay, what is he attacking? Nothing, just defending these two. You still remember the rules in the opening? Three golden rules. Pawn in the center, develop your pieces, castle your king, and then in the middle game we have two rules: sack rule and Adam rule. Adam rule, after each move your opponent plays, make sure, or at least ask yourself, what is he attacking? In this case, he's attacking my bishop. So let me move here. So if he takes, I take back with this pawn. So Adam rule, what is he attacking? What is he defending? And what is he missing? Sac rule, before you start to sacrifice and you wanna make attack against your opponent, sac rule says make sure all your pieces are safe, active, connected. What did he play? Pawn here. Is he attacking something? No. Defending something? This square. Missing something? Not yet. The game is still starting. Let me play this move in order to prevent him from pinning my knight. Usually white plays the bishop here, pinning my knight against my queen, which is relative pin. So now I avoided his pin. Okay, he took my bishop. Now I take back with the rook pawn. Now my rook will be active. Okay, he played bishop here, attacking something? No. Defending something? Empty squares, nothing important. Missing something? Not really. So now I will do the pin with my bishop against his queen. Okay, excellent reaction from white side. Immediately attacking the pinning piece. So I will go back on the same line to keep my pin against his knight. Now he cannot move his knight anywhere. If he moves the knight, I take his queen. So sometimes in order to get rid of this pin, it's annoying pin. White has to play this pawn, which is not good because the king will not be happy anymore. Okay, he played the pawn here, attacking something, no, defending this square, so it's not a big deal for me. I will move my queen to finish my development and connect my rooks. Now I have two squares to go with the queen, here or there. It's a matter of taste. So let me put it here to control this diagonal. And in this way, my queen will be active more than this square a little bit. So now maybe if he plays this pawn two squares, I can sacrifice my knight. If he takes, of course he should take. I will take with the queen with check and take his knight. So which makes the pin more annoying because now he cannot get rid of it. He had a chance, but it was not easy also, but he missed it. Now he cannot get rid of the pin at all. So now maybe I have a chance to increase the pressure over this knight. How? I need to get a knight to this square. Okay, how I can do it? I will put my knight here, and then here, and then here. There is a rule also says always put pressure over the pinned piece. If I pin a piece, I need to make use of that pin. The first step is pinning the piece makes it frozen. It cannot move at all. So in order to even benefit more from that pin, I can increase the pressure. Put more attackers over this pinned piece until it gives away. Sometimes I can win that piece. Okay, let's see what can white do to stop my plan. I don't see any defense for this plan. This bishop cannot go somehow to this square. The most popular way to unpin a knight, in this case, he should move his bishop, put it here. But it's too far from this square. White is in trouble. Thanks to the pin. Sometimes white just move the queen and forget about everything. But in this case I will take his knight and destroy his king side, shield. These 3 pawns now in perfect condition, exactly as my king's shield, and any moving to these pawns will make them weak. Oh, now he has a chance to play this pawn here to close this pinning line, because my knight is now covering my queen. You remember my plan? If he plays this pawn here, I will sacrifice my knight and then take with the queen. Okay, he moved his king, which doesn't change anything. I will put my knight here. What do you think about this plan? No, my plan was to come here. Okay, good. He has now to take with the bishop. In this case, if he takes, I will take with the pawn, of course. In this case, my pawn can move one more step and break open his king side. Okay, he did not take. Wow, that's surprising. That's surprising, my friend. That's not good at all. Why not? Now I can do the pin magic. His knight is pinned and I have 2 attackers. Now look what I will do. I will take his knight, attacking his queen, and he has to take, of course, with the pawn. Now you see my knight, it's very good knight, attacking 2 points in white's king side. So I will he resigned. My plan was to take this pawn with the queen. He has to move here. Then I take this pawn with the knight. It's check, almost checkmate. The king has no squares to go. He has to sacrifice his queen by force, and then I will take his queen. And in this case he will lose his queen for just a knight, and in the way also he lost a couple of pawns, which makes useless to continue this game. That's why white resigned. Just 1 pin against his knight with my bishop makes his game difficult, and subsequently he resigned thanks to the pin. That's why I'm telling you, pin is very strong weapon. Try to use it and practice about pin, both pins, the absolute and the relative pin, and avoid your pieces to be pinned. It's very important. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next video about another important tactic of the middle game. See you. Bye bye.